It was almost 1 year ago that the Carolina Panthers had the honor of picking first overall in the NFL draft. Drafting first is an extremely high-pressure situation. First of all, your team had to suck darn bad for an entire year in order to earn the first overall selection. So as an organization, you're already dealing with a frustrated fan base. Then comes the selection. Everyone has the expectation that the player picked first overall will turn the franchise around for years to come. But that's not always the case. Last year, the Panthers were put in a tough spot with multiple quarterbacks ranked right near the top of the draft, and they opted to draft Bryce Young out of Alabama. Young is a little undersized for the position, but most outlets had him ranked as the top NFL prospect. Unfortunately, Young had a difficult rookie season. He only threw for 11 touchdowns in comparison to 10 interceptions. Though it's early, he's already showing signs of being a disappointment. And to make things worse, the guy they passed on, C.J. Stroud, had a phenomenal rookie season and has already gained a reputation as a star young quarterback in the league. Ouch. That's gotta hurt. The Panthers are probably overwhelmed with regret, and they definitely look like idiots, but they're far from the first team to screw up in the first round. So in this video, we're going to go over some of the worst quarterback selections over the past decade. We got to start things off with JaMarcus Russell, because the dude might have been the worst NFL draft pick of all time. In 2007, the Raiders had the first overall pick and opted to use it on a big, fat QB out of LSU named JaMarcus Russell. And when he showed up, his work ethic was seriously lacking. The Raiders realized that he wasn't putting in the work, so they decided to pull a little trick on him. They gave him blank DVDs to go study. When he came back, they asked him what he thought of the videos. He responded by saying they were insightful. Busted. The team realized they screwed up already, but it only got worse. Russell put on weight and shortly after developed a taste for cough syrup. Needless to say, his career in the NFL didn't last long. Meanwhile, the rest of the 2007 class was stacked. Calvin Johnson, Joe Thomas, Adrian Peterson, Patrick Willis, Marshawn Lynch, and Darrelle Revis all went early in the draft and will all most definitely be inducted into the Hall of Fame. 2007 was a true example proving that you should draft the best player available, even if that means passing on a quarterback. In 2011, Cam Newton went first overall, and though he didn't have a long career, he did dominate the NFL for a stretch of seasons. However, after him, a bunch of teams kept selecting quarterbacks with other immensely talented players on the board. At 8th overall, the Titans went with Jake Locker, who never managed to carve out a career in the NFL. After a few seasons of faltering for the Titans, Locker wasn't signed by another team, and his NFL career was over by age 26. One pick after Locker, the Cowboys selected Tyron Smith, who's an offensive tackle sure to make the Hall of Fame one day. To this day, Smith remains an anchor on the Cowboys' offensive line and is one of the best to play his position. But the Titans weren't the only team to screw up. At the 10th spot, the Jaguars drafted a bona fide bum in Blaine Gabbert. His career went down a similar path as Jake Locker. And the Texans drafted J.J. Watt one selection after, one of the best defensive players in NFL history. After Watt, the Vikings selected Christian Ponder, whose career was also finished at age 26, while Pro Bowlers like Robert Quinn, Mike Pouncey, Cameron Jordan, and Cameron Hayward were left on the board. Hindsight's always 20/20, but still, it's proof that reaching on a quarterback can be incredibly risky. But teams don't learn their lesson. Look at the Jaguars. Instead, they doubled down on their mistake 3 years later, hoping he could become the guy that Gabbert couldn't. Though the draft board was jam-packed with talent, they opted to draft Blake Bortles out of Central Florida 3rd overall. Bortles wasn't the worst quarterback ever drafted. I mean, at least the dude put in a valid effort, and he even showed glimpses of potential. But no matter how much time the Jags invested in him, he couldn't stop throwing interceptions. Each and every year he started for the Jags, he ranked amongst the league's worst in picks, and often they would get returned back the other way for touchdowns. After a few years of trying and failing, the Jags finally pulled the plug on the Bortles experiment. Meanwhile, the team was left watching Khalil Mack, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., Aaron Donald, Zach Martin, and a handful of other Pro Bowlers who got drafted right after Bortles dominate for their opponents. 2017 marked one of the most painful quarterback selections in recent memory. At 2nd overall, the Bears opted to draft Mitchell Trubisky out of North Carolina. Trubisky had some talent and was even voted into the Pro Bowl his second year in the league. But from there, his career went downhill and he's developed into a journeyman backup. The most painful part of this selection is that there was plenty of high-end quarterback talent available on the board. A guy named Patrick Mahomes went 10th overall to the Chiefs, and we don't have to explain how badly the Bears wish they'd picked him. But just 2 selections after Mahomes, the Texans picked Deshaun Watson. Now, Watson's story is a little unique because he has unworldly talent, but has gotten himself in heaps of off-the-field issues. Still, the Bears scouting staff clearly had better options available on the board when they drafted Trubisky. 1 year later, the Jets fell to the same fate when they selected Sam Darnold 3rd overall to be their new starting quarterback. Much like the other quarterbacks who faltered in the NFL, Darnold suffered from a bad case of the interceptions until the Jets opted to pull the plug on him. Not only did all 5 of the players drafted consecutively after Darnold become Pro Bowlers, one of them was Josh Allen, who's now one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league playing for the Bills. Additionally, NFL MVP Lamar Jackson was drafted in the 2018 first round as well. It's not like he was on the Jets draft board at 3rd overall, but Jets fans can still daydream, right? The moral of this story isn't that teams shouldn't pick quarterbacks, because as mentioned, plenty of the best teams are built around quarterbacks as first-round picks. Heck, players like Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow, Tua, and Herbert were all recently drafted in the first round. Instead, the moral of this video is that mistakes happen all the time in the first round, and they'll continue to for years to come, which leads us to our question. This year, the Chicago Bears have the 1st overall pick, and they're in an interesting predicament. They have a young developing quarterback in the fold named Justin Fields, but there are questions regarding his upside as a starter. With 3 quarterbacks on the board, should the Bears select one of them to replace Fields? All 3 of Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels obviously have upside, but are they worth the risk while the Bears still have Fields in the fold? Let us know what you think in the comments section. And let us know if you'd like to see a video about the top quarterbacks available in the 2024 NFL Draft. Also, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for our weekly sports news and insight.